Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me. I am still Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com. It's still in the description below. It is still your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any of our watches. Reach out to me for pricing. I am Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com. Today, we're discussing a watch that represents the best of the best in the dive watch space. From Blancpain, one of the originals in the dive watch sector, this is the 50 Fathoms Bathyscaphe Black Ceramic. The modern Bathyscaphe came out in 2013. This black ceramic version came out in 2015. It is very slightly larger than the standard reference 5000 Bathyscaphe. That's 43. The ceramic cases are 43.6. Being all ceramic and sapphire, this watch is also a lot lighter than the equivalent watch in steel, so it's the best of both worlds. Lighter on the wrist and also harder to scratch. In terms of thickness, 14 millimeters on the nose, and from lug tip to lug tip, 49.6 millimeters, with a 23 millimeter spacing between the lugs. This really is outstanding stuff. It fits, it looks great, and it has superb horological qualities, which we'll broach in a moment. Now, it's not a thin watch, and you can see because of the sheer flank and the outcropping of the bezel, it's going to get hung up on a lot of tight dress sleeves, but it'll be just fine with a jacket. In fact, due to its monotone color scheme, it would really look great with black tie. Not every watch does. Not every dive watch does, for sure. This one would. It's an easy watch to wear if your wrist is, I'd say, 15 centimeters circumference or larger. For reference, mine here is 16. I always say the down the barrel view is the definitive one. I've got a little bit of clearance, though not much. So if your wrist is slightly smaller than mine, you can get away with this. If your wrist is a lot smaller, look for something like a reference 5008 50 Fathoms. That'll fit you just fine. This has a sailcloth strap, black on the top, some bolstering or stuffing to give it a meaty volume, monotone stitch, folded edge, rubber on the bottom. The vulcanized rubber inlay is soft against the skin, much more so than sailcloth. So it aids in ergonomics, and also separates the sailcloth material from the moisture, sweat, grit of the wrist, so the sailcloth will last longer. Though I will say this is almost an indestructible material. I've seen sailcloth 50 Fathom straps from the 2000s that are still going strong. Because this is Swatch Group, they've got the money to do things right, so their materials science capability includes the ability to make a durable buckle out of ceramic. This is where a lot of companies will sort of fly a white flag with a black buckle, so to speak. They just don't know how to make one that won't break. Whereas here, you get real ceramic. Those other companies are going to give you DLC, titanium, or steel. And not only is this just as scratch resistant as the watch, but it's necessary. Think about where the buckle is on your wrist. You're moving your hand all over your desk all day, especially when you're typing. So this desk diving component's usually the first thing to get disfigured. Building it out of ceramic fixes that problem. You can also see that there are micro facets on the pin, so the attention to detail is outstanding here. Now, the case is fairly simple because the Bathyscaphe, unlike the reference 5015, is designed to look more like a vintage watch. So it has a very sheer flank, minimally beveled lugs with squared off ends. We've got a big crown profile but no crown guards, and that's just fine by me because technically speaking, the 5000 and the 5015 have exactly the same specs. That is an awesome bezel detent. 120 clicks. Both the bezel and the insert are ceramic for scratch resistance. We've got a bezel pearl that you line up with the minute hand, and now you've got a 0 to 60 minute count up timer. I actually prefer dive bezels to chronographs. They're easier to read, and especially if you're measuring something more than 30 but less than 60 minutes, it's a lot easier to judge at a glance how much time has elapsed with a dive bezel. Plus, you don't get the downstream service expenses of a chronograph. Now, we've got these applied indices and hands to match, and they're all blackened, but this is not an all-black watch. So some all-black watches, like the Omega Speedmaster Dark Side of the Moon Black or the Hublot All Black series, they're just impractical. They're hard to read. Here we do have enough contrast that you can easily tell the time. It still works as an instrument watch, which frankly every diver should. So you have these applied indices. You've got a little stepped frame for the date, which in good taste is black with white printing to match the rest of the dial. And then we have these sort of hybrid baton syringe hands. All three hands on this dial are loomed, and that's something I always look for on a dive watch. I really feel like you need to know whether the watch is running in the dark, especially if you're using it as a dive timer or a backup dive timer. We have a screw down crown, 300 meter water resistance. Pull the crown out, now we activate stop seconds. There's very little dead angle here, so I don't turn the crown all that much before the hand starts to move. So you've got that function. You've also got a quick set so you can rapidly cycle the date. That allows you to rapidly cycle should the watch stop or encounter an irregular length month. Flip it all over, we've got caliber 1315. I'm just going to quickly remove this case back sticker so you can get a better sense of this movement's finish. Now the movement is beautiful. As you can see, there's snailing across the bridges that is a refreshing change from Côte de Genève, which might not look right on a movement this modern. You can see that the ratchet wheel has been solarized and the other wheels have satination. All the screw heads have black polished tops. The beveling is a mile wide and mirrored, and you can see the rotor has snailing on its outer profile, a media blasted recess on its interior, sort of a satin channel that runs around the edge, and then on the absolute extremity, polished beveling. Turn it all over. We have a balance that includes a free sprung balance, so you could see that it is a fixed stud holder with all the changes done using variable inertia bolts in the rim, so it can be adjusted very precisely in 6 positions, one more than a standard chronometer. And then shock cannot change the timing of the watch, unlike with a mobile stud index. Here, those variable inertia bolts can only be moved by a tool, not by concussion. There is also a silicone hairspring, which makes it anti-magnetic. All this pivots on 35 joules. There's 3 mainspring barrels in series, so you have excellent timekeeping with a really flat torque curve throughout the whole discharge of the 3 barrels, and the power reserve is 120 hours, and they don't play any games to get that long power reserve. This is still a 4 hertz beat rate. They don't peg back the beat rate and sacrifice accuracy for the sake of a power reserve. You get everything here, and again, even through the caseback sticker, you can see how broad and gleaming those bevels are. This is a lot more impressive than, for example, the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak Offshore Diver, and frankly, it's also a lot more exclusive than only the Rolex dive watches that people seem to crave online. So compared to a Seamaster, compared to a Sea Dweller, compared to a Submariner, compared to high horology divers from the likes of RM and AP, this thing really holds its own, and it's evergreen in the sense that it will never show scratches with this ceramic case. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.